You are listening to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast show, sponsored by Garry Kemp of Tower Design and Print Limited of North Kent.
Well, hello here, I'm back again. Well, last time we had this show, they sent me to the wrong place. I couldn't get in, no one was there to meet, they'd gone somewhere else. The fella said you'd all gone to the pub, and this time I come along, and there's no one here I recognise from the last time. I thought that Johnny Burrow was going to take over on the last show. Instead you had that Carl Bates of BBC Radio London and I Follow. In the blue corner next to me, I've got the one and only third generation Millwall supporter, and two further generations joining him. Not here today, but at the Den. Yes, it's the one and only former Millwall and Millwall Lionesses chairman, Jeff Burnige. Welcome, Jeff.
I wondered who you were talking about then. It's come as a surprise. Go on.
Well, there you go.
Who else have we got?
Who else have we got? In the red corner, because you're always in blue, I've noticed, Jeff. In the red corner, we got Stan, famous for his articulated works on the Millwall fanzine, The Lion Roars, and quite a few big views across social media, including his friendship with both West Ham fans and Everton fans, which is not to be knocked either. Hello, Stan.
Okay, Eamonn. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
And somewhere in the depths here, we've got some bloke called Johnny Burrow, who left us in the lurch at Love Sport Radio. Well, he didn't leave us in the lurch. He came along and he's coming through the door now. The lights are on for him as well. But he did leave us two others, and Matt Beadle's done a good job since, I must say. But Johnny, lovely to see you again.
Great to see you.
And share some space with you. And, well, today what are we going to do? Well, what we've got a little look at where we're at, where we're going in the section called Are the Lions Roaring? We're also going to speak to a very famous Millwall striker, another man from the Wall. No, it isn't that man from EastEnders. It is actually Steve Claridge. And then after Steve, we're going to move on to the question for the show. It's one that's been floated around on the social media sites and also on our Love Sport Radio show on last Friday night. And it's about I suppose, feelings about Neil Harris being the manager at the Den. Then we're going to go on to the grumpy old Gits, and we've got a junior Git with us this time, so we'll let him comment. Millwall community matters, and of course they do. And we'll talk through some of the things that are going on within the Millwall community and where you're making a difference. So I'm going to go straight into and say to Jeff, well, where are we at and what are we doing?
Well, we're ahead of where we were last season.
Yeah.
Which was a minimum requirement. Obviously, we'll talk later on a little bit about what fans are saying on social media. There's only one thing worse than... there are other things worse than fans having their say on social media, and that is us all being banned from what we're saying on social media. I'm a great one for free speech, but we all have different opinions and we need to respect each other's. For me, I'm disappointed that we haven't evolved more in our style of play so far. Clearly, Neil's transfer business in the summer was leading in that direction, but for one reason or another, we haven't yet started to gel in a footballing sense in the way that a lot of our fans were hoping we would. But we are only 9 games in, and we have got more points than we had last season. So I think it's going okay. What I would say is, I think, generally speaking, although you wouldn't get this impression from some of the social media, I think people are happy. We've never enjoyed crowds like we're getting in my time here. So a lot of people are happy, particularly coming to the home games. When I bought the club with Regsborough in 1986, we had an average crowd in our first season of 4,000. In our second season, we had an average crowd of under 7,000 and got promoted to the First Division in the same year.
It was good.
So be careful what you wish for. If we're getting 15,000 for home games, I'm a happy bunny, and it says people are happy.
That's good. That sounds good. Looking from the inside, well, looking from the outside in, rather, Johnny. You follow the Lions still because of your affection for us. How does it look to you?
I think it looks okay. I've been particularly enjoying Stan's Twitter, which I always did, and there have been a couple of games this season where you've been quite annoyed about the style of play, and I think you're spot on, to be honest, because of what I would echo what Jeff was saying, this hope that you'd get towards a more dynamic, not Barcelona style of football, but more in that direction. I think the results are there. If you'd been offered 18th at this point in the season, you'd probably have taken it. I think you'll be safe, but I agree that the style could perhaps be lacking. But I think Matt Smith was a good signing.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you know, we all last season, right? You wish we're hearing things like each year the quality in the championship goes up, which I don't have a problem with. The players each year get better, again, which the evidence supports all that fact. And yet last season, it seemed to me that we were the only team that was just lumping the ball. And the problem is with that, when you're then doing that, and if you're playing up against teams that are very good, and especially in possession, once they get the ball, you're running around trying to get it back. And then what was invariably happening, you get it back, and then within 10 seconds, we give it away again. Now, if you keep doing that, against all these teams of quality, eventually you're going to pay the price for it, and that's what we did. And also there was other problems as well, but to me, I just think personally, I mean, of all the players that he done with the signings, I've got no problem with any of them. I think they're all good players, and to be honest, when it was all being signed, I didn't hear anybody complaining about them either. I never heard any of that. But to me, if they get the way that they're playing the game, if they get that sorted, right, then I think things will begin to happen. I mean, it tells you a story, right? I mean, was it before we kicked off against Fulham, the commentator on the television was saying, even at that point, I think we played about 4 games at that point, and there was something like that. And at that time, Millwall then, out of all the teams in the Championship, would create less chances than anybody else. Now, we hadn't played sort of a team up until that point that was as good as Fulham. So then there's something clearly wrong, isn't there? So if you get that sorted out, I mean, like against QPR, Matt Smith, for best parts of the time, he was stuck in the centre of the QPR half. Very rarely did he make the goal area. And the players that were playing against him, because he was marked by the big centre half in the back, and in front of him, he was shadowed, and the other players were feed on scraps. And it paid. Well,
I've had many an argument with Stan, haven't I, about the style of play, and it keeps a smile on both of our faces. But essentially, what Stan says about last season, I'll repeat what I've said before, which is that we were left short with front players after failing to sign more than one in the summer, the one of which immediately got injured for the season. We saw the decline of Steve Morrison. The last year of his contract for Lee Gregory, it was a struggle, and although it wasn't enjoyable, the objective was to avoid relegation, to stay up. That was the objective, and we managed it. The next step was to say never again, and that's why we've signed the players that we've signed in the summer. I don't believe that Neil would have signed a player like Molumby or a player like Mahoney, if his idea was to lump it, in Stan's words, to the front. I don't think that was the intention. So far, we haven't seen the style of play that we were expecting. But we have got half-decent results. And as for Stan's point about making no chances, I was disappointed that we didn't manage to get 3 points at Huddersfield. I've got to admit, I'm not a very good Millwall fan. I didn't go. I was at home. But I did look in the Sunday papers, and out of 24 teams in the Championship, home and away, only one team had more shots on goal than Millwall on Saturday. Now, you can prove everything with statistics if you want to, but I don't think it's as simple as saying we never make any chances. I think we tend to miss them, and I do have a feeling that it's going to come right on the Luton game. Over to you, Stan. What do you think about my comments there?
No, well, I mean, I wouldn't disagree too much. The only thing I would query with you was the fact that I wasn't saying we was making too small chances. That's what the commentator on the television was saying. Not, I'm just repeating.
Oh, there you go. See,
but no, I mean, if it all comes good, lovely jubbly. That's me. I'll have all that all day long. But
you can't beat it. You can't beat it. So really, I mean, what we've seen is lots of players coming in, lots of players going out, lots of players coming in. 4 or 5 different changes again this last weekend. It's a challenge for us. I don't want to linger on it for much longer because I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we do the question for the show.
Bethany Warren here, and welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast, question number 14, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. This is our first podcast of the season, and we'll be asking questions about our current playing squad throughout the season. So here's the first question. From our current squad, name 3 players that have represented the Republic of Ireland at full international level. Please send your answer to studio@noonelikesUsTalking.com. That's all in lowercase, and No One Likes Us Talking is all one word, and talking is without a G. Write podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will run until the 25th of November, when the competition winner will be announced on our show with Love Sport Radio, our social media links, and will also be given a shout out on the next No One Likes Us Talking podcast. The winner will receive No One Likes Us Talking memorabilia. Finally, thanks again to our sponsor, WePrintAnyGift.com.
We're going to welcome Steve Claridge, who was a Millwall striker from 2001 to 2003, scoring 29 goals in 91 appearances. He was our Player of the Year in 2001 to 2002 and joint scorer with Neil Harris the following season. He had a short-lived management job with us in 2005. He played for over 20 clubs in almost 34 years. Steve was famed for the roll-down socks he looked. Yes, no, I nearly said something wrong there. He currently manages non-league Salisbury, where he has a 65% plus win rate since being with them for 4 and a bit years. Steve, welcome. It's Eamonn here, and it's great to talk to you. And
pleasure.
How did you end up joining the Lions?
I was at Portsmouth, obviously my hometown club, and then 34, Tony Pulis was released, in inverted commas, should I say, and
okay.
Milan Mandaric asked me to be the player manager, but I say that loosely because I don't really think. I think it was probably a knee-jerk reaction from him more than anything. I don't really think he knew what my role was entirely, and I don't think he ever really got that across. So that was another a short-lived experience, should I say.
No job description then, okay, yeah.
No, not really, no. Another difficult circumstance, a little bit like Millwall.
So when you joined us, how did that actually come about?
Well, obviously I was a little bit fragmented leaving Portsmouth, and I actually had bad bone bruising as well at the time. So it was a case of getting myself fit, and I had sort of like 6 or 7 clubs who were interested. It's good clubs like Millwall, but I just went up there and spoke to the gentleman there, and it felt right, and I wanted to go somewhere where there was a little bit about the fans, and obviously I was old enough to know size and scope of clubs and what reputations were, and what the sort of like the passion was, and exactly what the sort of clubs were that were interested in me. And I just thought, you know what, this one sounds right up my street. Passionate people, down to earth people, good people, good supporters, good lads, and thankfully, for once in my life, and obviously the amount of clubs I've had, I've not made every decision hasn't been correct. But yeah, it was a good decision in the end.
Hey, life's like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we live and learn, don't we? Eventually.
Steve, this is Stan here. I'm just interested. You played along Neil Harris, who's obviously our current manager. Did you ever think he was destined to become a manager? Do you know?
I don't know whether people say that, but I don't think at that stage you look at each other and think that. You're just, I mean, don't forget, I was in the main, I was competing. He played in my position, so you know, I'm obviously looking at him more as competition rather than if he's going to be a manager. So if you're asking me from what I remember, I think. I don't think I ever looked at him. Nothing surprises me. You know, you get some lads. You think, you know, you look back and think, you know, looks like got all the material to be a manager. But it's not about that. It's not about your personality. It's how you see the game and whether you have that ability to see the picture and see, you know, tactically what's happening and dealing with players and stuff like that. So from a manager, a player doesn't give you that indication, because to be a player is very different to being a manager, and you have to have a very different personality to be a manager. So you would not see that personality in a player.
Yeah.
You would only see that personality as a manager. Yeah. No, it would be very, very difficult for someone to tell that.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because, I mean, you're obviously, you know Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've heard different people say, like when they used to listen to Sean Dyche, you know, probably over a cup of tea or when he was in training and that sort of thing, they just sort of said, well, by the way he spoke, you know, their view was, well, you knew at some point, given a chance, he was going to become a manager.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
No, absolutely not. Dyche was. I think Dyche's I get on far better now with Sean than probably I did as a player. Sean was sort of never used to let the fullbacks go forward. Him and Nevers. I mean, they wanted cover upon cover upon cover.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It was one of them where they were very much sort of looking after their own roles and looking after them, you know, their roles as players. So no, I just don't think at that age and at that where we were that anybody could say that, you know, when they spoke to someone. Certainly, I didn't get that impression from him. He is, I've got to say, he's done an absolutely magnificent job. I think, do you know the best way to compare what he's done? Eddie Howe went to Burnley, and Eddie Howe was about, I think, 16th in the league when he left. And Bournemouth paid 1.4 million to take Eddie Howe from Burnley. Sean Dyche went in there and got them promoted.
Yeah.
Now, Eddie Howe is considered a fantastic manager.
Yeah.
Sean Dyche went into the same situation as Eddie Howe and completely turned it around. Now, I know it's different at some clubs, but that just shows the job that Sean Dyche. He's done an unbelievable job as a manager. Unbelievable.
Hello, Steve. You won't believe who this is talking. It's Jeff Burnige.
Sorry?
I said you won't believe who's talking to you now. It's Jeff Burnige.
Say that again.
Jeff Burnige.
Hello, Jeff. You there?
I am doing this as well this week.
Oh, I didn't realise, mate.
No, I thought it would come as a rude shock. Who was the manager when you actually joined the club? I know it's nearly 20 years ago. You sounded nearly as Mark McGee. Yeah. My recollection was that they were on a break in Spain when you signed, and it was Bob Pearson and Theo Paphitis that did the deal with you. Is that your recollection?
No, Bob Pearson.
Yeah. Bob Pearson, yeah.
Bob Pearson. Theo was in the background, and I think financially I had dealings with Theo, but it was Bob Pearson that I did most of the groundwork with.
We had dealings with Theo later on in your Millwall career, didn't you, Steve? We probably won't come to that today. But the other player you were competing with, apart from Neil, was Tony Cottee, who was signed at the same time as you.
Yeah.
But it was you that got the place in the team. It was towards the end of the season, wasn't it?
It was around sort of January, February time.
Yeah.
So it was Millwall was just going for promotion.
Were they?
I think it was us and Rotherham. I think my second or third game was Rotherham at home when we beat them 4-2, and I got a couple in that one. The first game I remember was at Wickham away, and Tony I think might have even come on for that one, but Tony had gone by then. You know, by his own admission, he'd gone. He had a bit of a spare tyre, and he wasn't fit. And I think he was just sort of, he'd signed as a mate deal almost. And it was never going to work for Tony at that stage, because he was sort of like fitness wise, he sort of like was coming to an end. Whereas I was still very much, I was sort of almost around my peak still at that time. So,
well, there are a couple of games that Millwall fans remember you for, Steve, as a player. One of those was for scoring for Leicester City against Crystal Palace at Wembley. I'm sure. I think I've got that right, haven't I? Was it for Leicester at Wembley?
That was, yes. That was in the playoff final.
Off your shin from outside the box. Am I underrating that goal now?
Yeah, you probably are, mate. But I did accentuate that miss, so that came from me. So I can't exactly have a go at you, can I? For reminding me of the stupid things that I say sometimes.
If you'd been wearing shin pads, mate, it wouldn't have got to the goal. It bounced off a bare shin, didn't it?
I mean, it's probably the only time I've ever hit a ball properly, and I've actually played that one down. So, yeah, brilliant.
But the other goal would have meant a lot to you as well, and that was in the FA Cup at Southampton.
Yeah.
Now, being a Portsmouth lad, that would have meant
absolutely.
a lot to you.
I just missed one. Me and Paul Eiffel got in a bit of a mix-up. We had an open goal, and we both sort of got in a bit of a tangle and managed to mess that one up. And but I got one just after that. It wasn't a bad goal, actually, and it was great in that end as well. It was a Millwall end, and it was separated. You had Millwall one side and Southampton the other, so sort of like turned me back and just pulled me shirt up in front of the Southampton fans, which was brilliant. And in all honesty, it's probably one of the best games that Millwall actually played under. Since I've been there, we were brilliant, considering they were Premier League. We absolutely battered them, and should have got the job done, but of course Kev came on, didn't he, and scored in the last minute, and then we got beat at home, so that was really disappointing.
I'll tell you what though, Steve, the best 2 goals I ever see you score, and I really enjoyed, was when we was back in which is now the Championship, was when we was down at Selhurst Park. And I mean, funnily enough, I was watching that them goals on the DVD about 10 days ago, and I mean, I just love it.
Yeah, I stabbed a couple in, didn't I? One was a mix-up. Funny, I forgot that on the DVD myself. One was a mix-up, and the other one there was bouncing in the box and just sort of pushed my foot at it, and it went in and got a little bit of purchase on it, and it went in the corner. So I remember that because I mean they gave Millwall virtually that whole side, didn't they? And I think Millwall had like about 8,000 people there. It was just such a fantastic day, and obviously I had a little bit of history with Palace as well, so it was there was a little bit of an edge to it as well, so it made for good watching.
Yeah, I mean that I tell you what though, that goal you scored when we played Rotherham and beat them, and the second goal you scored,
chip with me left foot.
Oh, but what a goal that was! And
I scored a couple of half decent goals with left foot. Do you remember the goal? I think it was Coventry, the one that came over my head, and I hit it on the turn, top corner.
Yeah.
That was a decent goal.
I'll tell you one thing: you don't hear many Millwall fans. I'm talking about the ones that saw you there. You don't hear many people complain about any of the goals that you score. If anything, it's the opposite, mate. It's the opposite.
Yeah, no, I had a great time. I've got to be honest with you. It was right up my street, mate. The type of player that I was. I think I was probably a little bit underrated as well. I mean, I'm very proud. I've got a record that, every club I played a season for, I was player of the season by the fans. Mm-hmm. So, mind you, I had to finish a season. Okay, so just to clarify that, because it happened 16 times. So if I was with a football club and I played from the start to the finish of that season, I always got named player of the season. Funny enough, so something I'm very proud of.
That's right, Steve. That was 2001 too. You were Millwall's player of the year. I remember.
I say I had a wonderful time. We were very lucky. It reminded me, when I look back, it reminded me a little bit of sort of like the class of '92 with Man United. When you look at the players that came through the system, never happened since, probably never happened before, and probably will never happen again. But there was 5 or 6 lads who came through, young lads who were through the system at Millwall, and we're just fantastic players. And we were very unlucky that year because we got beat, didn't we? Obviously by Birmingham in the last minute.
So what players impressed you the most, do you think, during your spell there? You said that there was a group of young players. Anybody that immediately comes to mind?
Playing with Richard Sadlier, albeit only for a year, was fantastic. I mean, I got 19 goals and he got 17 that year, league goals, and we were a good side. We were a good pairing as well. I mean, he had everything. Kid was quick. strong, good in the air, 2 good feet, perfect foil, and we played really well together. And I was sort of like 34, 35, 36, I think, even by then. So I was sort of like I could help him and cajole him along, and he was the problem with Sads obviously was a little bit fragile, wasn't he? Because bodily his body wasn't strong, and in the end I think his hip went a year later, and he never played again. But Timmy Cahill was fantastic, Stephen Reid, Paul Eiffel, Lucas Neal. It just goes on and on. There's some really good players, and they all came through the system at Millwall. So we were very lucky at that stage, very lucky, and it was a good football club.
Mm. Oh yeah, they were some good players. They were excellent players.
Yeah, I mean you think about. We did obviously budgets and they talk about budgets now, but you need a bit of luck, and we certainly had that with those players at that club.
That was fantastic.
All in one go.
Fantastic times, Steve.
They were good.
Just to close up with you, I suppose you don't get much time to go and see Millwall these days, being there at Salisbury.
No, I don't get much time to do anything.
Do you keep an eye open for what's going on?
Yeah, always. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Have you got any ideas about, where we're at and where we're going, and do you see us sticking in the Championship?
I think so. I think you're going to have, with all due respect, I think if you got relegated out of that, it would be certainly an underachievement. I think if like you did before, when he got in and around the playoffs and stuff like that, I think that's probably an overachievement. So I would expect. I think with Millwall, I would put it into the. I would describe it as every say 5 years, you would compartmentalise it into maybe 5 years. One of those, maybe one, possibly two, you might have a go at the playoffs. The others, it's going to be a case of not making the numbers up, but just building towards that year when you can have a go.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be every year. You're not a derby. It's not going to be a derby,
no.
Or something like that, where every year your expectations are that it's a minimum playoff. But there are certain expectations that have to be fulfilled. And I don't think it's certainly not a club that should be relegated out of the Championship, but it's not a club that will be competitive every year. No. So it's one of those where you would... I think the years when you're not competitive should be used towards building up for that year when you are, possibly.
I think that's a good summary, Steve. Well, that's great to hear from you, and we'll catch up with you again, no doubt. All the best, and thanks for coming on the show.
Well, we could talk about my time as manager as well if Jeff's back again at Eamonn.
Oh, I'll get him in specifically for that.
It's in the memoirs, Steve, which are never going to be written.
Cheers, Steve. Bye.
Cheers, thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao, Steve.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care. Every Friday night, Millwall fans get their say, 9 till 10 p.m, with No One Likes Us Talking. The Millwall Fans Show, all of your latest from the Championship side, every Friday night on Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
No One Likes Us Talking is also sponsored by Garry at Tower Design and Print Limited, Dean Wilson, Independent Funeral Directors at Eltham and Lock's Bottom, Reliance South East Cleaning Services covering London, Kent and Sussex, and North East Millwall. You can find our sponsors' details online or at our website at noonelikesUsTalking.com. That is a talking without a G, and No One Likes Us Talking is all one word. That's noonelikesUsTalking.com. Well, welcome back. Here we are. We've got the question for the show now, and it came from one of our American friends, a Millwall Lion from the US of A, and that's Daryl Bruggin, a long-term friend of the show from the only place where true Millwall fans can come from, and that's Milwaukee in the United States of America. Daryl pointed out that the calls on social media this week for Harris's sacking have already amped up quite a bit, But even with the improvements in the squad, he figured out that a mid-table finish is likely and the best that we can expect. We're only 3 points away from that spot at the moment, and after all, it's only September. Well, actually, it's October today. Do you think that's where we're getting close to the point where Harris should go? Or at what point do you think Harris ought to go if the results don't start coming in? Well, we put that out on social media. We put that out on the Millwall Fan Show here last Friday on Love Sport. And we got quite, the largest amount of responses that I can ever think of. I've never seen anything like it. And in real terms, they fell into three camps. One was, yeah, he ought to go. One was, no, he needs to stay but needs a bit more help. And the other ones were, leave it out, it's all a bit too early and he's got a developing team. But I'm going to read a few through. And for those that I read through, you'll be getting Millwall memorabilia in your post from our George Lampy. He'll be sending it out to you soon. But I'm going to read a few through, and I'd like the panel to give me your thoughts after I read each one. John O'Neill wrote, "Hi guys, hope you're all well. Probably too long to read out." That's what you thought. But I'd like to make my point as a supporter of 55 years. I've always backed Neil Harris, and he did a great job for us up until the end of 2017-18 season. However, his record over the last 54 league games is not acceptable. If we want our club to become a regular championship team and progress, I'd like to think we now have the players to avoid fighting relegation every year, but I don't see things improving under Harris. We've never played the greatest football, but the standard of play now is embarrassing. Almost as embarrassing are Neil's after-match comments. He's taken us for fools. Sitting back and trying to get a 0-0 might be achievable in the lower divisions, but not in the Championship. After 55 years of watching my beloved Millwall, I've had enough of it. And hope football. It's a recipe for disaster, and we will go down unless there is a change. We do have footballers in our team, but it seems Harris's tactics are sucking the life out of them. Jed Wallace, Jason Malumbi, Ben Thompson are prime examples of this. People ask, yeah, but who would we get? Things can't get any worse, so that's not an argument against making a change. Since the beginning of the last season, played 54 league games, won 12, scoring 54 goals. I fear that record will not improve, and we will be relegated under this current regime. Reading back my email, it was very amiss of me to miss out Mahoney when I mentioned good footballers that are failing due to Neil's tactics. He looks a shadow of the player that we're all excited about early season. Have a good show. John O'Neill. Thoughts, guys?
Who's going first, Stan?
I'll let you
me?
go first, Jeff.
I'm glad to see they're getting on so well.
Yeah, very polite. Very polite, which is not what you get watching Millwall away. If you go live, there's not a lot of politeness at the moment. John's given us his views. I personally don't agree with them, but I can respect them. I understand where he's coming from. It has been a struggle over the last season and a quarter. Yes, it has. But the team we had last season was coming to the end of its life, and I thought certainly from early on that surviving was the objective last season, and we did it. Only just, but we did it. And I said earlier in the programme that from the players that Neil signed in the summer, I think we were all looking forward to an evolving style that would involve a little bit more of playing from the back through the phases to the front, with perhaps the alternative of wide players feeding a guy that was great in the air. That's Matt Smith, obviously. It's fair to say that we haven't sparkled so far this season, but we have got more points than we had last season. We have, and
more points make prizes, Jeff.
And also, I did say earlier that we did have a lot of shots in the game at Huddersfield. 15, the second highest number of shots, as far as I can make out, in the Championship on Saturday. So I think it's whether your glass is half full or half empty. For me, it's half full, and I think for John, it's half empty.
Stan?
Well, yeah, I listened. Yeah, I mean, I have to say the email you got from John. I mean, and I'm not trying to be condescending when I say this, but I mean,
Do you know, John? He's supported a club nearly as long as you, I think.
Well, yeah, you might well be right there.
Yeah.
But he's obviously he's thought about what he's put down. You know,
Yeah.
ain't just sort of knee jerked. And to be honest with you, a lot of it's hard to disagree with. I mean, from my point of view, right, see, this is the dilemma. Again, you go back to last season, and we played the last home game, we lose that game. Neil Harris goes public and tells us all about these problems he had. And he turns around and says that it's all got to change. I've got players at the club who don't want to be here and all the rest of it. A couple of days later, Steve Morrison turns around and said, well, if he names names, careers will be over. That's what he said, right? And what was adamant, you know, so everybody said, well, things have got to be done. So we've got all these players in and they're doing it now for one reason or the other. And I think, as I said before, a lot of it's down to the tactics that's being played. That's where we are. Now, OK, we're better off now than we was this time last season. Fine. But, I mean, if you fast forward a month, are we going to be saying the same? But the fact is, right, the supporters this year are simply not going to go through this season what they went through last season.
No.
They just ain't having it, right? Now, they're not, to be fair, they're not saying it round and saying we want the playoffs and all the rest of it, but they just, and that's what we have to be mindful of. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah, some good points made there by both of you. Johnny, do you make anything of that you hear or listen to?
Well, I agree with him and I disagree with him. I think the point about Malumbi and Mahoney and Wallace and Thompson and the likes of them, meaning that Harris has got no excuse not to play good football, is fair enough, to be honest. I don't think you can look at those players in a midfield and go, we've got to go long, because you do have other options. But in terms of whether it's time to sack Neil Harris, in terms of whether you're going to go down, it's not time to sack Neil Harris, and you're not going to go down. And if you look at examples in the Premier League, every single team who is underperforming to any extent has large segments of its fan base calling for the manager to be sacked. You've got Crystal Palace fans wanting Hodgson to be sacked. You've got Arsenal fans wanting Emery to be sacked. You've got United fans wanting Solskjaer to be sacked. Everyone is constantly unhappy with their football team, but ultimately Millwall are doing fine, Arsenal are doing fine, Palace even are doing fine. People need to give their managers a bit more time.
Yeah, they need to breathe. And Stan's been a great advocate of that over the years. And every day he tells me, look who they're sacking now. When he speaks to me on the phone each morning. And we have our briefings.
They do this. So you sit there and you watch them, didn't you? I mean, last season before they had Crystal Palace? I mean, I'm not a fan of the club. But they get in a bloke, don't they? Frank de Boer, isn't it? Now, you're talking about a bloke who's a manager who's played for Ajax and Barcelona, and he's played a style of football where they don't put balls down channels, they put it to feet. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to employ that sort of manager, it's no good thinking he's going to turn it all around in 4 games. I mean, it's a nonsense.
Well, that sums up our situation, I think,
right,
coming through the season that we have. I'm going to turn to one of our most favourite people. I can't do the accent like some people can, but Emma. More Stacey Dooley than Janet Street Porter, as she kindly pointed out to someone who read her statements in a strange way. She says, we're watching a team with many new faces, and getting the right mix to be ruthless is the challenge ahead. Neil is one of our own and can get advice from some talented managers from outside the Championship. He is not going to deliberately sink our ship, but we must get behind him and help him like the 12th man that we can be. I'm sure he will make the right decisions, and only he knows what that might be. Don't stone him or our players, shout them on. Well, I think that's a...
Yeah, I mean, it's Neil Harris, it's public, and it's public knowledge that he speaks to Kenny Jackett and Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
He's never made any secret of it. And he probably speaks to other people, which is fine. I don't have a problem with any of that.
Steve Coppell.
Steve Coppell's on his books,
Steve Coppell.
So it's a good group that he's got there.
I think that was an interesting post.
Yeah.
Because she didn't actually say she liked the style of play or disliked it. She focused on what the supporters' role should be, or I would like them to be, and that is, for now, certainly for now, we can play a really important part. And I look around football and I see fans moaning about their manager, such as Johnny mentioned, and I don't want us to be like that. I want us to be a club that sticks by one of their own until it's absolutely crystal clear it ain't happening. 9 games in, 18th place out of 24. It's to me, it's not on to be asking for Neil's departure at this stage.
No.
But I can't say that we're all thrilled with the evolution of the team. We need to be playing a little bit better to get the fans really excited. I get that.
Yeah. I think what you said there is quite true. And Emma put that quite cleverly together and said what she had to say. Tom Phipps wrote in, and he eloquently says what the majority of our responders had stated. He says, "Why are we keeping on with this?" And to use Michel Barnier's phrase, "What do you want?" Overall, we are in a good shape, and we're undone by a mistake against QPR, hardly the manager's fault. We are what we are, and it seems that folk are panicking unnecessarily. I believe if that we finished about or just below mid-table, it will be a good effort, given what the manager and coaching staff have to work with. We have a manager that's loyal and decent, and who is no doubt hurting and concerned like the rest of us, and I'm sure he'll put it right. I reckon that as yet he does not know what his best 11 are, and to give him credit, he's not afraid to show he can bite by dropping those who do not appear to have put a shift in. Given that, I do not want to become a sack-happy club, as dismissing managers does not always solve the problem. Look at Man United or Watford as prime examples. We are Wool, and we must stand solid together in whatever situation occurs. Cheers, Tom.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, because but unfortunately, I mean, I understand. Unfortunately, today in this day's world, right, and the way that the media go on about, I mean, Man United, for example, they appoint Solskjaer last season, and before he's actually managed the game, albeit on a temporary basis. Yeah, well, it won't be long before he's gone. We go then, and then they give him, they put this run together. Right, and he gets appointed as a manager. They're trying to give him, and it's the same now. And unfortunately, if you when you read social media and you read a lot of these comments about, he's taken them as far as he can and all this sort of stuff, that's what they're quoting, and it all sounds good, but it's not that simple. And we're not saying after the first season we want to get back into the playoffs. I mean, if we finish halfway up the table at the end of the season, I don't think anybody will moan too much about that at all. They just don't want a repeat of last season.
No.
Chaps, on the way out from the QPR game, I had a row with another Millwall fan because I wasn't happy. I was frustrated. He was frustrated.
That's
right?
unlike you, Jeff.
No, it's not. You want to hear me.
You just don't row with me. That's okay then.
We all were frustrated, but his target was the manager. When we'd just got ourselves back in the game, when a catastrophic individual error was made, he made no mention of that. No mention of it. No. What I would say about one of the points made there is that I don't think in all of Neil's time he's had 20 players to pick from.
No.
Right? And there was 8 games in August. In 2/3 of a month, or just over 2/3 of a month, there was 8 games. He has had to change that team to keep those players fresh and to work out who is earning a first 11 shirt. And I think it's a skill he's having to learn. He's never had that situation where, how do I leave 2 players out of my 20 out completely? And it's not easy. But thank you for that contribution about getting behind the manager. That is exactly what I think. And people know I've got some experience on the other side of this. And you have to not go game to game, month to month. You have to try to work out what the trend is. And I think it's too early to say that we're going down or Neil must go. I think that is ridiculous.
It's only the beginning. The end is yet to come.
Yes.
I think the last one that I'm going to touch on is from Lion Mush Mike. You'll know him, I think, Stan. He says, if the issue is a style of play or tactics and such, there can only be 2 solutions. Tighter a change in management, or Employ someone who knows tactics and can teach the management. After all, let us not forget that they are still learning their way as coaches. I'm a Millwall fan and I want the best for the club, not for any one individual. Great show. Lion Mush.
Well, I mean, I keep hearing this about, I keep reading, Harris ain't tactically astute and he ain't this and he ain't that. No, I mean, all right, he's not the greatest manager in the world, but then in fairness to him, he don't claim to be. But, it often makes me smile sometimes because, you get a bloke who's a player now and he decides to, when he comes to the end of the game, he wants to do his badges, to do coaching and all the rest of it. I mean, that can take, nearly 6 years to get that. Because you start off with these, you've got sort of 3 stages, and it can take up to 6 years. Well, obviously, in all that time, they do all these training techniques with tactics and all the rest of it, right? So, the idea that somebody goes for a course for nearly 6 years, and then you say, he ain't tactically astute. I mean, I don't understand the dynamic there. Because if he was that bad, he wouldn't get through the course, surely. He wouldn't pass.
He wouldn't get over the steps. I think you're right there, Stan. Anyhow, that's that. That's question for the show. And thanks to everyone that contributed. That was a magic. We had more, as I said, responses than ever before. Over 200. We'll be back shortly with Grumpy Old Gits.
Bethany Warren here, and welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast, question number 14, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. This is our first podcast of the season, and we'll be asking questions about our current playing squad throughout the season. So here's the first question. From our current squad, name 3 players that have represented the Republic of Ireland at full international level. Please send your answer to studio@noonelikesUsTalking.com. That's all in lowercase, and No One Likes Us Talking is all one word, and talking is without a G. Write podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will run until the 25th of November, when the competition winner will be announced on our show with Love Sport Radio, our social media links, and will also be given a shout out on the next No One Likes Us Talking podcast. The winner will receive No One Likes Us Talking memorabilia. Finally, thanks again to our sponsor, WePrintAnyGift.com.
Welcome back, and it's time for a Grumpy Old Gits. That wonderful section where we voice the opinions of the collective group known as Millwall fans and discuss it. So, I'm going to start. Stan, what's in your Grumpy Old Gits bag?
Well, yesterday I had to go down to Millwall Football Club to pick up my ticket for the Brentford game. Anyway, as I'm walking to the ground, I thought to myself, because the route I was taking, I thought, well, I'll have a look in the old club shop. So I hadn't been in there for a while, and I went in there. And because you see plenty of the replica shirts up, and scarves, and hats, and all that sort of gear, and jackets, Millwall, and sponsored, and all that. But then what I was interested in, and I've noticed it for a while now, but when I was looking around, I was looking for the old sort of T-shirts we used to get, with... They go in there and you've got No One Likes Us or Millwall, the sort of things that you'd wear. There's not one of them. All that, and I've said this before on this programme, in my opinion, we're gradually being sanitised, in my view. And all I saw there was sort of normal shirts, long sleeve shirts. You could pass in the street for anyone, and the only thing that identified them as Millwall was a little leather badge where it had on Millwall.
Are there other fans picking this issue up as well, Steve?
I think so, yeah. And also there was, and the sort of, you had the sort of like the T-shirt type thing, like the Grandvad vest, with a round collar and the buttons. Yeah. And again, all you had on there was a leather Millwall badge. But the sort of T-shirts that we've all, the ones I mean, you couldn't see them anywhere. And I just, to me, as I've said it before, I think the club's becoming sanitised. And I think that's another way. And I said once before, I don't think it's going to be too long before you do not see the thing No One Likes Us anymore. I can see that suddenly disappearing, if not careful, disappearing off the scene.
Well, it won't be disappearing off this radio show.
No, I'm glad to hear that.
Jeff.
Yes, I've got one. I'm not grumpy.
You're not grumpy.
I'm not a git, but I've got to admit,
But you can do angry.
I can't disagree with the old, but
Oh,
can I, right?
No.
Otherwise, I wouldn't remember Johnny Shepherd and Pat Saywood and Charlie Hurley, would I?
Yeah.
But I was disappointed that at a time when women's football is growing exponentially.
That's
a word, Stan.
It's a big word, mate.
It's
Not a lot of people know that.
I'm full of them, as well as other things.
It's good in trade union circles, isn't
Yes.
it?
I was once a member of the NUJ, Stan. I'm not a non-union man. But it was sad for me, and it wasn't the club's fault. The loss of the Millwall Lionesses' position in women's football due to what was effectively a breakaway at the end of last season.
Yeah.
And Millwall deciding that they weren't prepared to invest and get behind what was the fastest growing part of the football industry.
It is.
I thought we missed a trick there. On the other hand, it has gone back under the wing of the community scheme, which is quite common in women's football with professional clubs, and they have had to start again 4 divisions below. That was at the insistence of the FA, because they treated Millwall Lionesses, as it is now, as a new club. I was really disappointed with that opinion of the FA, very much so. But I do believe, such as we've said about managers, Millwall fans, I want to see us back in our own. I really do. And we've got a new team, very young. Some of them have come through the Millwall Regional Talent Centre, which is like a centre of excellence. 16 and playing in the first team. Others are Millwall fans that never thought they'd get a chance to play for Millwall Lionesses, but now we're playing at a much lower level. They've got the chance, and they're playing at St Paul's, which is stone's throw from the Den. I'm exaggerating. It's a hell of a good stone's throw, but everyone knows where it is.
A good walk.
In Surrey Quays on Salter Road. They play on Sundays at 2:00, and it's free to come in, and we've had bigger crowds than the breakaway team by far. And
is there car parking at that
street? There is some car parking, but there's street parking
and
as well.
Good.
But it's well worth going, because frankly, those players, they're mainly a young team. They are putting their bodies on the line for the Millwall shirt, and as a response to what happened at the end of last season, I'm proud of that, and I really enjoy it, and I would like the fans to sample it. Come along to St Paul's one Sunday. Go on the Millwall Lionesses website and the Millwall Lionesses Twitter and the Millwall Lionesses Instagram, making sure you're not going on the breakaway one, and then come along to a game. And I would like the club to feel that they would get some benefit from being known continually and forever as one of the great pioneers of women's football, women's and girls football, which Millwall were, and it's very sad to see us in Tier 6.
Let's hope that takes place and it's all what happens. Talking of car parking, I'm going to go back to Stan, because Stan's going to reflect on some of the issues that have been brought to his attention by some of the fans being unable to park around the ground.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes you turn up at the ground and you then proceed to get a load of earache about people in their cars, and it's something that's been going on for a few months now. They notice people used to park their cars around different places in and around the ground. In the flats where the old den used to be.
Yeah.
And then there was places off Surrey Canal Road and that. And then all of a sudden the council come along and turn around and say, no, you can't park there no more, and you can't do this, and it's become a problem. And now people have turned around and sort of said to the club, and I can understand it to an extent, they said, well, where are we going to park? What are you doing about it? We can't get in the car park, right? Is there some sort of way that you could take up with the council about acquiring some sort of area where people could to park, because people are going to come by cars, aren't they? And either park up down Burnige Road or wherever it might be. Now, my understanding of it is, from what I'm told, is that when they've mentioned this to the club, the club are sort of benevolent towards it, in the sense they turn around and say, well, it ain't really our problem, because we got our car park, and what the council do down the road is down to the council. Well, that all sounds good, But I mean, if people can't park up their motors, and people then end up, especially if they have to come a distance to get to the place in the first place, then the knock-on effect's going to be they won't come no more because they can't park up and whatever, and it'd be a problem then. So I just think that the club need to be a little bit more proactive, is the word, rather than reactive, to see if they can secure somewhere. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, right? If you are dealing with a local authority, granted,
No.
but it seems to me that from what I hear, they're reluctant even to do that.
Well, let's hope that in the new plans that I believe went to Lewisham Council yesterday, that there was something in there about better parking arrangements. If you look at some of the grounds now around the country, they've even got multi-floor, not store, I'm thinking of stores and floors, multi-floor car parks, and that is only but a good thing.
Yeah, but they aren't in inner London, are they?
No, they're not inner London.
Have you tried parking your car at Arsenal's ground, or parking your car at Tottenham's ground, or parking your car near Stamford Bridge?
Well,
it's not possible. I'm afraid those days are gone, and now we're getting 15,000 people, many of which extra people are coming by car.
Yeah.
It has got more difficult, and nowadays, because I'm just a fan, if I choose to come by car, and I sometimes come on the train, I have to make sure I get there a bit earlier than I did last season and the season before that. And sometimes I'm lucky to get one of the last couple of places in the streets that I know, which I will not name, or listeners to this podcast may well nick my ideas.
Good point, well made, Jeff.
Yeah,
I can hear what you say.
Yeah.
I hear what you say. I've got one grumpy old Gits bit, and it's on London, which is an online news arrangement, and is run by a guy called Dave Hill, who's the founder and the editor. And he put out a piece about 5-6 days ago, which I suppose posed the question, is Millwall FC at last going to produce a credible development plan? And it was there that I read that Renewal and Millwall were going to see Lewisham this past Monday, yesterday, and start talking about the plans to go in place. He wasn't very kind in that document to the Lions, and said that they never really brought much to the table during all the time that Renewal was developing what they were developing in the first place. I wonder who's actually pushed the author to make those statements. You got any clues on that one, guys?
Well, they might need to look on. Say the Labour benches of at Lewisham Council. I could think of one or two people who were very vociferous in the campaign before about what Millwall had done and what they hadn't done, and I got the impression, right, that they were taking rather great pleasure from it, personally. But you know, it's all very well for people like this bloke to turn round and say, well, Millwall didn't do this and Millwall didn't do that, right? But the reality was, as I understood it, at the time we was trying to put in for this land to develop the thing, we were told we couldn't have it. I mean, all the time they knew that it had been sold to, you know, the council were never ever going to sell it to us anyway. In my opinion, I thought they got in with Renewal and they were going to stitch us up, and they come unstuck.
Jeff?
Well, obviously, I could write a book about the history of this regeneration scheme, but I have very much kept out of it in recent years. We have now got another opportunity to participate in a big way in the regeneration of the area around the Den. We must not blow it this time. We very nearly lost out to a compulsory purchase order, which took a lot of resisting, and I pay tribute to those within and without the club that contributed to that campaign. It seems to have been successful. We seem to be working together with the other developer and with the council. We mustn't mess it up this time. We must not. As for car parking, one of the aspects of the development undoubtedly will be a new station on Surrey Canal Road. Frankly, I think there'll be less car parking when this is over rather than more. And if they have built multi-storey blocks of flats, first dibs on car parking is going to go to residents of those flats.
Absolutely.
Otherwise they wouldn't buy one. So, in all honesty, I think that we have to accept what Arsenal fans have had to accept. You cannot park near the ground and walk to watch your team play. Those days appear to have gone. And nowadays, if you don't turn up before, should we say, half an hour before the game, you're in for a long walk. You really are. And that's the way it is. If you're going to get 15,000, 16,000 crowds, it's going to happen.
We're going to take a break there, and then we'll be back with Millwall Community Matters. And of course they do.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care. Every Friday night, Millwall fans get their say, 9 till 10 p.m, with No One Likes Us Talking. The Millwall Fans Show, all of your latest from the Championship side, every Friday night on Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
So here we are, it's that time when we look at what's going on around the Millwall scene, and we promote those matters that matter to our fans. I'm going to start off and I'm going to say welcome to Garry Staff and Bethany Warren, who have joined No One Likes Us Talking broadcasting team. You've heard from both of them already on our shows, but they will be involved much more in the future. We look forward to seeing you, Garry and Bethany. What are you going to say, Stan? Anything interesting?
The Lions Raw fanzine, yeah, that's right. I mean, in actual fact, it's quite a good magazine. I mean, I have to say that, and it's a bit of a rarity because with the coming of the computer age and social media and whatever, to launch or to carry on launching a fanzine in this climate, and for it to still do a decent job, then it's all well and good. Yeah, so yeah, the old fanzine's going to be out on Saturday, which is excellent, and against Leeds. I hope it does come out this week, because when the first one was due out, we was told the date, and then the date come and went, but there was no magazine. So, but eventually we got it, so hopefully it'll come out this time on time.
He does love a good moan, doesn't he?
He does.
He
We
does.
should have put that in Grumpy Old Gits, that one as well. Yeah, it's all down to you, Aisha. So when they come along and see you down at the gates at Ballina Road, Zampa Road, they'll be pleased to buy a copy off. And don't forget, you can read Stan as a feature writer in the Lions Raw magazine.
Well, Millwall fan Dan Poor and his Charlton supporting mate Craig have been organising a charitable walk in memory of young Charlton fan Rob Knox and young Millwall fan Jimmy Mizzen, who were both murdered. They're calling it Together for 10, and both Charlton and Millwall fans will walk together for 10 miles. The walk is going to take place on the day of the Millwall versus Charlton match at the Den on the 9th of November and coincides with the annual Jimmy's Day at the Den. You can help them to support those who work tirelessly to beat street violence and knife crime by searching for 10 Mile March on Virgin Money Giving and making a donation.
Jeff?
That is a great cause, and it's a thing that happens involving the Mizzen family, and I love it. So well done on that. But we also want to remember our fan Jackie Knight. She's the lady that's been raising money to help those school children in the Gambia, and she wants to make sure that they receive the Millwall shirts that have been donated, the boots, the stationery. She's still raising money, and she still needs more. So can you please go on Just Giving there and search for Gambian Lions and see if we can get her to the target she's aimed at.
Johnny?
And don't forget, this is crucial, don't forget, you can listen to the No One Likes Us Talking team every Friday night on Love Sport Radio from 9 p.m, and please do get in touch if you have something Millwall to say on the programme.
Stan?
Yeah, well, finally, I'd like to a big thank you to all Millwall fans that donate or support worthy causes. You make a big difference for so many people.
And I think that's really true. I mean, old Matt Beadle really got quite emotional about that a couple of weeks ago when we were talking stuff through. and they do a great job for so many things. Most recently, the Millwall fan and retired firefighter who lost out to Thomas Cook for his final trip because he's been told the cancer treatment is ended, and now, thankfully, the people like British Airways and a number of other organisations have come to the fore and are flying him and his family out to Greece for free.
I read it today on Facebook. There's an article in the New Shopper about that, and the headline is about the Millwall fans' generosity.
Yeah,
it tells the story. Yeah,
it does.
And Ty was at the Millwall Lionesses game on Sunday, by the way.
That was good.
So he knows where to be on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, doesn't he?
And all I've got to say is there's a look forward to. We'll be back next month with another monthly podcast. Hopefully we might see some of the missing people this time round who didn't want to feel my wrath at losing me for the last one of last season. And I'll say this to you: Fanáticos de los Leones, hasta la vista, as a Spaniard recently said to me. He was sporting a Millwall scarf. I share the same thought with you all, our listeners. Until next time, bye for now.